Okay, thank you very much for the kind introduction. I would like to separate the presentation in two parts. First of all, I want to introduce you to some basic ideas of Lear-Script, and afterwards will Andrew show you some details about the actual implementation and how the things can performed and implemented on Lear-Script. First, let's start with a question to you, to the auditorium. Who already has experience in preparing teaching materials at school, university, or preparing materials for software products? Okay, some of you. Okay, and the next question, but I will give the answer. What was your hope when you started to develop the material, spending a lot of time in generating the 320s implementation of how to introduce 1, 2, 3, yeah. How to start with open, how to start with algebra course or an introduction to computer science. You expected to find, can you hear me? I get, okay. You expected to find some material from previous authors, of course, in different versions. And the idea is to develop course materials like an open software developer with different contributors, different versions, different languages, and everyone takes the certain parts that are interested for the didactical goals or specific goals of your course in this context. Of course, a text file makes much easier to copy contents, copy the structure to a new place and to reuse the ideas. Of course, you are not alone with this idea. The UNESCO defines the goal of open educational resources as a platform for exchanging the content for course material between different authors from university, from industry, to ensure that the lecturers, from lecturer perspective, have more time to individual work with the students and do not spend much time in preparing many course materials that already exist. And from the student perspective, to have a greater choice related to the materials I want to learn with. Both aspects are really interesting, and I'm looking forward that this goal, formulated in 2002, becomes reality. But of course, we have to consider several aspects that are not solved in the concept. There's a diagram illustrating the results of a small script I run on our library server, and I evaluated the data types labeled with an OER element. And you can see we have PDFs, half of the numbers are PDF documents, some JPEGs, and so on. This is one of the main misunderstanding of OER. It does not mean that you are able to access the material. No, it's necessary to change it, to adapt the material according to your specific needs. No course on algebra or other topics is the same at each university. You want to adapt the material to the preconditions of your students, your didactical goals, and so on. This means most of the data types are not appropriate for this idea. The second point, if you take a view to the main goals of our OER idea formulated in the UNESCO document, then you will find that we have many disadvantages, many problems on the way. First of all, the different closed learning systems. If you have experienced in giving talks at universities, you know that the material are mostly stored in a specific learning management system that is a closed structure, and you have large problems to store the content in different formats that allows you to transfer them in another system. On the other hand, missing standards makes this process complex. And this is a developer conference, of course. We have to think in the perspective of non-engineers, non-computer scientists. The representation of the content needs to be in a clear and simple structure. The limited digital skills of our potential users is a question here. the most remarkable question that becomes obvious during the last years is to find the relevant materials. Of course, if you go to GitHub, GitLab is something similar and look for meta information about a course, it will take some time to find an appropriate course on object-oriented programming, for instance. But if you look in one of the number of databases implemented just to provide the content, you need much more luck to find, as a student, a suitable course for your specific learning goals. At the end, in a short summary, many of these problems discussed in the OER community are solved from computer science perspective due to the fact that a simple Markdown document can meet all the requirements. But of course, you will not receive a teaching award if you start with a static website. So the main idea is to take some ideas from Markdown and improve its capability to integrate interactive elements. One example is such a simulation for an Arduino code, and of course it can be adapted on runtime directly in your course. The student can use it, and I want to introduce later the technical details. It's not connected to any server or some similar. It's just a JavaScript that is executed in your website, and the only thing you have to implement is to integrate your code with some additional information to a Markdown document, and the Lear-Script interpreter generates the outcome. What is the vision? And now I go to the general idea. We hope to implement a free and open source base for interactive learning materials without a server infrastructure which generates many problems in different countries if you want to exchange the content of a teaching session. But on the other hand, it's necessary to organize it by a version number to illustrate the different contribution and to emphasize the ideas, the didactical goals represented in the structure. And it's necessary to generate it in a document or represent it in a document in a readable manner that supports the features of Markdown but consider the specific requirements of learning materials. Just as a summary, and we will give you examples, we have a number of documents integrating all the aspects, simulations, quizzes, for instance, that are necessary for a nice and motivating material. And you can run this directly, interpret it in a website for your student, or Andrew implemented a really powerful Lear exporter that supports the integration in different learning management systems too, or a small web app that can be run on different operating systems for mobiles. Enough of the motivation. I want to give the talk to Andrew, and he will show you the details in the background.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, fine. I'll just include this. So we wanted to use Markdown just for educational purposes, but Markdown is static, is fixed, it's not sexy actually, and what we did, but it's actually quite easy to learn. It's using a lot of these visual metaphors, and it's beautiful. So everyone just can look at the code. It's not hidden within modules. It's a linear text file. Everyone can adapt it and change it. And so what we did was actually just to build upon these visual metaphors, extend them, and also to reinterpret some stuff of Markdown. So, but that we are always concise with a Markdown standard actually. So now we'll show you fast. I don't have to start with Markdown, I guess, but we can simply run through some of the basics. So the first thing that we actually missed was, of course, all of these references. So I want to refer to a specific content that somewhere relate or somewhere on an external site, which can be just a link in this case, but you all know this if you add something like an image. So I simply add an exclamation mark in front to it. So that's it. So you add the image. But So you see, just like funny, so there have been laptops 2000 years ago, and so users can directly explore the content in this case, but why stopping there? I mean, just like as you see here, so it's definitely some kind of MP3, some sound, and so our idea was just if an exclamation mark is used for images, probably a question mark, which might somehow look like an ear, could refer to sound, like in this case. So like and this could be also SoundCloud or something else, some ancient music. And to go further, if we just extend this, what is a video? Just like this YouTube video resource, it's just like it's an image with some sound. And that's basically it. So you can add any kind of images, stuff like this. And to extend this, if I have another external web resource that I don't know how to describe it probably. Is it a video? It is something else. So we just add this feature like question mark to tell LiaScript, just try to integrate it somehow. So like in this example, if we go there, we can, like from Sketchfab, it tries to access, okay, there's an embed service. So how can I embed this content? Okay, we'll get some information back, and you can embed it like this. So it's loading a bit, but if embed fails, for example, like in this case, I want to import a simulation, which takes some time with interactive. It at least tries to embed this as an iframe. You can style it, you can just add it, and in the Markdown context, it's still a valid link in this case. So just to have another reinterpretation, if I make a paragraph out of multimedia content, what is the most obvious thing? Probably you don't want to store it linearly, but from our perspective, you generate something like a gallery, so you can just run and listen to it and just like have it so your user can decide. So the next thing, we have questions. So what is also missing, we want to use it to interactive teaching, to create textbooks, but also use the same document for presentation and to have some kind of YouTube-like screencast probably. So, and if we get to this animation stuff, what we did is actually everything that is associated with braces, it's just like an animation. So if you add this to the head, it just like let it disappear on animation point number 1, on 2, disappear at 4, 3, you can do this inline. And so if I go further, animations like this, so I can do some blah blah blah, describe my content, something disappears, something appears, and that's it. And so in the next iterations, just like we want to add some kind of annotation, some text output. So we are basically using some comments. So it looks like this, so you can have your paragraphs actually, and this is the, I have to show it on another slide on this one, since text output is not working on the editor mode but on the website. And so as you see, you can have this, if it's a textbook, so everything is in there, all the content, add a number, stuff like this, so you can read it. There's no animations, like if your user prefers this, he can use this actually, but you can also, if you change the content to a presentation, we can actually also click through the, sorry, I have to switch on the sound.
Add a number and double braces to head.
Oh, can you hear it? I don't.
At a certain step.
So okay, so the idea is clear.
Tables will be presented in more detail in the next part.
So another one.
Unpack the braces and define animations.
And it also works with other languages, like in Russian. So, and if you want to use it for another audience, probably you can just inject Google Translator or use an external translator for this case. And okay, I switch to German. It's automatically done. And if I go back to, it's a German one. And also you can see it, like in this case, if I switch like onto this, so the text is translated to German and the Russian remains probably. It's just, let's switch this off. So in this case actually you can present your content probably. So like with this, we simply just add another language to it. And so the system identifies, do not translate this if you want to. Another reinterpretation that we did was probably with every one of you knows this. Like a table is a table is a table. So of course you can reorder it if you want to. It's not fancy anymore. Not that fancy, but yeah, somehow. But if I increase the content, probably what do you see here? It's also obviously also a table, but it contains some kind of data, some kind of structure, and it actually screams about, try to visualize me, try to visualize me. So, and if you go to the next slide, probably LiaScript tries to identify it based on the pattern of your data that you presented to it. So what is appropriately the best representation for it. So, and in this case it found out this is probably a bar chart. So your users, they can just like rearrange the content to brown beds, probably like in this case they can play with the data, explore it a bit more. And if I change the data like 0 point, so you see the kilograms are would not be visible anymore actually. So, and if I try to store this, actually it tries to find you another representation. And this can, we have a couple of representations like in this case, and what is of course the table is not visible completely, but it's just like a one-liner. So LiaScript thinks probably this is a bar chart, pie chart in this case. So, and you can also, you've seen those animation stuff like this, and the idea is just with Markdown you can combine everything for free. So, and you can also probably combine those animations, put it into it, and you have this representation. Okay, that's not fancy, but if I change to another representation, it somehow changes. Data type, I can simply use like bar chart. Probably if I have another representation, I use this one and don't let it identify. Oh, I want to use pie chart, sorry. Pie chart. So you see, and you have a slide animation. How to do this with PowerPoint, probably. So with the next one, this is a more complicated version, but you can actually do a lot of more stuff, configure it if you want to, so that you can have something like a heat map. You can go back to the table, I can reorganize it, I can filter it, stuff like this. So just like, you don't have to do anything, you just use your plain old data in there. So what's next? We use it probably if you don't want to have some kind of, we have to draw some graphs of some stuff like in this case, so why not using ASCII art probably. So you don't have to switch to another painter or to another Excel, create some sheets. You can directly use it, draw it visually, like a metaphor. Everyone sees this, understands this probably, quite easy. And if I go to the next slide, so you have this graph. You can add some more content to it, probably just like R, like upper bound, the lower bound, I don't know. So and stuff like this. So quite easy, intuitive. Everyone can see it, can use it, translate it, or create diagrams by its own. And like for the request of RFCs, probably you can have more complex examples like this, and you simply tell it to, yeah, this is the diagram I actually want to draw, and you get something like this. But even in a more simpler, you can use this, also combine, like everything can combine, and if I want to have animations and like this within my ASCII art, I can do it like this. So easy, intuitive, it's everything within a text file. So just like, so another thing is we use LiaScript for educational purposes. So everyone uses this or knows this task representation. Probably I can jump to it. No. So this was GitHub flavored stuff, but we just use this metaphor and extend it. So probably if this is a checkbox, we use this double braces notations or brackets notation to define quizzes, like the X defines actually the solution. So, and you can add as much as options to it, remove them, stuff like this. And this is just the easiest way of, you can create a quiz, for example. So I can check, no, that's the wrong one. I have no idea how to solve this. Okay, this was probably the right answer. So everything happens within your browser. It's not published. Everything is private. And to have a more complex, if we want, this was a multiple choice quiz. If you want to have something like a single choice, it's mostly used with radio buttons. So in our case, just like those radio buttons are presented like with these parentheses. And so to show, like in GitHub, it works also with formulas. You can have something like this. So if you add a question mark to it, like an optional, you can have much of hints that you give to the user. So the thing, there's just one hint actually. I don't know what the solution for this is. Probably this one, and everything that's in this star line, it's actually like a block in this case that defines the solution. If you solve it, you get the correct answer. But this could contain also tables, videos, animations, references to other content, stuff like this. And to have a more extreme example with this, just like quizzes represented in a matrix scenario, like with multiple choice and single choice quizzes. You can also have other questions or quizzes like this. And this would be, you can try it by your own, so after we share the link. So what is the correct German article for this part actually? So with this class no translate, if you translate this quiz to another language, it just says don't replace this. It tells Google don't replace these German articles probably, and also the German word for it, like girl is in Germany, obviously it's neuter. So, and you can guess what yogurt is, probably just to get in coding. So actually from our perspective, code is just a representation. So in markup you already have this highlighting, but if I'm talking about JavaScript, why is it not executable actually? So it runs within the browser, it's displayed within the browser, but probably you want to play with it. So this is just like to have a short introduction. Where did I put this? It's on the next slide. So it's just like you can define some kind of project. Just a couple of Markdown code blocks into the end, and you can add this also to quizzes. You can add an associative or associated script tag, which tells tell the input of number one. So this is the first evaluation, and the second one, and how to interpret this. So this is quite easy. This can be even more complex. You can run this like this. I can change this to false, blah blah blah. So it changes, and you can go back and forth between your versions and store it within the browser. But programming like this can be also used for different purposes. It can be used to solve math. As you see, here's some kind of add. This is like an extension that you can also create by your own. And if I go there's not so much time left. I have no idea. I can probably also create something like music. So in autoplay, I don't know if it's hearable. So I can DBR change with so it looks somehow strange. I don't know what it does, but I can use it to create music, stuff like this. Or I can use it for students to teach them correct writing. So like present, so what is the audience type? So it's fairly easily your text, stuff like this, and it's associated. It's 6th grader will understand it. Just 1 minute left. So last but not least, how to create macros. So I want to get this. A macro is just a representation like with this add stuff. And so you see here there's a main header like in this one. So these are also macros. You can just add author somewhere else into the content. You can load scripts with import, and what we do is actually like you can do this. This is a course, a Markdown document actually, which also already contains some kind of macro syntax, and we simply, it's stored somewhere else. And the thing, if we use the import statement from our perspective, we just import their set of macros, like to make all the stuff executable, runnable. Just to go back, so A lot of code, lot of code, lot of code. So it's basically, I won't code it at the moment, but last but not least, what is missing at the moment, just JavaScript, and we just reinterpreted the usage, so JavaScript can have a body-like tag, so you can place it everywhere, and if it outputs something, just in the macro, so, and we mixed it actually, it's combined within an input field. So the script does something, it actually just represents this output, input, and displays it, and this script actually subscribes just for the output value, and there's some calculation based on of this. Just wait a second, so I can do something like the square of is like this, the data is still in there, it can even be more complex. Oops, I have to reload this. So it didn't work, so with a more complex situation I can change those values, have different, and manipulate, read the data, it is there, the whole computation is there, I don't have to rely on some external calculations, and the representation, the result of a JavaScript can be also used with any kind of Lear-Script, like in this case like a table, so I can mix it, I can reorder it, sort it, or I can even output some kind of other stuff. And the idea, just like if it looks like this, so if it has a border, you can click on it, and if it's highlighted like in blue, you can always have a look at the original code, inspect this probably, and change this and adapt this and stuff like this. So okay, I think, I'm sorry, I have to close for the moment, but last but not least, how to share the stuff, just 1 second please. So if you have somewhere your Markdown document, it does not necessarily have to be on GitHub, and so it's actually can be put everywhere. So this is just like the course we have now, and it's just like everything you actually do. Right? It's just like add those liascript.github.io/course ? And you refer to your project, to your website, to your Markdown document. It's just like it tells the browser, okay, this content, and just interpret it and display it to the user. So, and the original document is always there. So you can reuse it if you have opened it once. So it's stored within your library. It works even offline, and you can create fancy online courses, we hope so, or make your Markdown documents interactive. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Sebastian Zug and Andre Dichter.
Yeah.
I don't think we have just 1 minute for the questions, so I will ask one of the questions if under what license can I use the framework, and also for commercial professional usage?
Yeah, it's also for commercial use. It's free for everyone. I mean, you can publish your content under your own license and share it with your audience. We have no idea who's using it. From time to time we get an email, some information from the chat, or we have to search for Google, but it's your content. You can host even the entire website by your own, stuff like this, so it's free for everyone. Just like.
So we have time for another more question. Do you have to align the text in tables yourself in the script, or does it make automatically?
What they by align within the script, so they don't necessarily have to be perfect like tables, but if you're using like Atom or VS Code, there are some plugins, if you mean this, so which automatically format your table for you. You just enter it, and the spaces and everything is arranged automatically for you. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And if you have more questions, just leave it there and they might answer. So thank you everyone. We're done with this session. We will be back at 1:45.